Hey, welcome, this is Jelle, growing bonsai, and today we're going to work on a very big scar. Going to be lots of carving, a little bit of wiring, lots of waiting. This is not going to come out until maybe next year. So what's the deal here? This plant came to me, I think 2 years ago by now, maybe 3. And this part had all died off because it got some frost in early winter. As you can see, it has a very nice fat base. A few very strong branches here lower down, and here on top there's only one small living branch, and most of the trunk here has died off. Now I say most of it because you can see here a very thick swelling in the trunk. This is new growth of the trunk coming from this branch and this branch. The same on the other side of the trunk. If you look, there's fattening here. Now ideally a bonsai doesn't have large parts of dead wood. It will rot over time, it weakens the tree, and I don't really like the look of it on deciduous bonsai. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to carve out all this dead wood in the hope that the edges here of the wound will roll over. It's going to be a slow process because I'm going to carve step by step. I'm going to stop carving the moment I hit living tissue. I'll show you the difference between the living and the dead tissue once I'm there. So once I hit the living tissue, I'll see how much I've left, whether I can bend it or whether I'm just going to wrap it and leave it. So that's the project for this video. Then I'm going to let it grow out. I do not think this will ever become the top. This one will be the eventual top of the tree. This one is going to go. These lower branches are just in place to keep it alive. So I'm going to start carving all the way down here. This I'm going to leave in place so it can help to keep it alive up here, but I'm not going to carve all the way down there. I'm just going to start carving here along the edge of the current living tissue. Right, so what I've done is I've realized that there's not a lot of living tissue close to the edge. So I've undercut the whole deadwood part because I want to not wear the carving tool out more than needed. So you can see here there is a channel, and here on the other side I also made a channel in the wood. And now I'm going to use this splitter to see whether I can actually split this off rather than carve it all the way. And I just place it in the channel on both sides and squeeze. That doesn't seem to work yet. There we go. Let's try to carve the rest off here at the end. Now you can tell here it is all dry wood and doesn't seem to be carrying any sap here. So I can quite easily smoothen this whole thing out and just wrap it up. Don't think it's going to be thin enough to bend. Nope. Now I can start scarring here the edge of the living tissue, then add cut paste, and then it will slowly start wrapping around the wound. That is, in theory. Let's see how that works out for the rest of the season. I'm just going to carve this out a little bit further first. So now I've smoothed this whole section out and I've started to hit the edges here of the living bark. And with the knife I'll clean up this edge a little bit further, add cut paste and then just let it grow for the season. And we'll see again in spring what it looks like. Look at how narrow this has gotten, how thin. And now, really, it is just a matter of putting it back in the garden, fertilizing, watering, letting the top grow. I'm not going to cut anything because I want this plant to be as strong as possible. In spring, I might prune back further. But for now, this one needs to go, needs to grow up and strong. And now I'd like to get this carved part bent a little bit. And I know that with a thick wire here, that's never going to work. So what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to take this heavy wire, it's about 2.5 millimeters of aluminium, tease it under the big root that sits on this side, and then attach it here to the top. And slowly over a couple of months I'm going to, every couple of days, tighten it a little bit in the hope that this slowly bends. This I'm going to let shoot. All the other branches I'm going to keep short so that this really fattens up and hopefully aids in recovering this section. So much for the theory. Let's see the practice. In theory, this should work, but whether it works in practice, this side branch itself might actually just burst off. And then of course with these tension wires it is important that you bend the branch and then tighten, and you don't bend it by tightening. So manually you make the bend and then you tighten. This is not an easy thing to do because it's also not all that stable in the pot yet. It's the middle of summer and I wanted to move this to my bench to show you a few things, but the pot is fully merged with the ground. The bend here is in place. I think I can now just remove it. Yeah. And then this part I am going to take off because I only want this leader branch to stay in place and rest not. So I'm just going to reduce this now. I'm leaving a little bit of a stump to facilitate the sap flow correction. At the end of summer you can now see this little side branch is now actually really the main branch. The area that I cut earlier looks well, and now I just clean it up a little bit so that by springtime I'll have a little bit of callousing here over the edge, hopefully. Just with normal knob cutters I'm taking it at the branch collar, actually just a little bit inward. And then I'll add a little bit of cut paste in the hope that that really aids in the growing over this edge. In the end it needs to start looking like a normal branch again, but that will be a few years. There we go. All done for winter. Now it can just grow again for a long time.
and at some point I'll do a repot so you can actually see the roots. But here also you see the scar healing over nicely. Yeah, this is going places.
It is early December and soon we're going to get lots and lots of frost. -5 Celsius, so about 22 Fahrenheit is predicted for next week. Now, this is a quince, and quinces are not completely frost hardy in my climate. So to not take any risk, I'm going to put it in the greenhouse. That will raise the temperature a little bit. But although it is in a pot, I can't actually move it. The reason is quite simply, the roots have escaped at the bottom of the pot. I could have prevented that, but the roots that have escaped from the bottom of the pot are actually the reason why these branches have grown so long. Normally in a pot a quince will not grow all that tall. Now if we look here at the bottom of the pot, look at all these roots. These are quite big, but they're not as fat as they could have been if this was not in a pot. The reason is the little drainage holes there, they will cut off the growth of these roots. The biggest here is about 0.5 centimeter, which is exactly the size of the drainage holes in this pot. This is however not the time to repot, so I'm just going to slide these in a more sheltered position so they don't get frozen up all that much. And in springtime I'll do the repotting. It's winter and the leaves are falling, and actually you can now see how the bark has started to roll over the trunk line. This is it for this tree for now. I wish you a very good winter. Keep growing bonsai and see you next time. Bye bye.